Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vern Richburg, and I'll be leading today's resource webinar, 7 must-haves for your new business venture. We'll be discussing business planning today. Again, as I mentioned, I want to thank you for sharing with us today. We're pleased that you're with us, and we're truly hoping that we'll all be able to learn something today or find out something useful that we can employ in our businesses. In the chat box, if you haven't been there already, is my telephone number and my email address, and at the end I will share it again. We use these sort of webinar training experiences for engagement. So the Minority Business Assistance Center, Youngstown Business Incubator, the Women's Entrepreneur Center, and all the work that we do here is available to you in some sort of capacity to help your business thrive and grow. So let's get started. For credibility's sake, and as well for your own success, and I certainly prescribe this, we believe that it's important to have a basic business plan. It pays to build a basic business plan, especially if this isn't your first rodeo. So if you're a newcomer, a startup, and you haven't really ever put your mind or pen to pencil or pencil to paper, as I should say, to create a business plan, then this is for you. Having said that, this is not necessarily our webinar today. Shouldn't be so much viewed for startups. If you're in business and you've been in business for a while, this is a good time to revisit key components of your business, to look at the health of them, to see if they're operationally functioning well. And it's always good to go back and revisit and circle the wagon back around from where you began your business venture, so that your business can again grow efficiently amidst the competition that's in your industry or your marketplace. There is a trend now that's moving away from written business plans. I certainly don't prescribe to that. I think that a business plan certainly is very useful. But there are actually still entrepreneurs who don't consider a business plan for their business to be important, even though studies show that, or strongly suggest just the opposite. The business plan is valuable for you yourself, the entrepreneur, for potential investors. It may even be a training tool or an onboarding tool for new employees. It helps them understand your mission, your vision. It helps them understand your culture in a very simple way. So in those 3 instances, business plans seem to do have some value. It also should be and is a measurement of or an outlay of your goals and objectives from which you can draw your key performance measurements from. But the most important reason why I'm an advocate for business plans is pretty simple. First of all, compiling a business plan is important for obtaining funding. It also serves as an internal sort of guide, an internal blueprint, which helps you reduce risk. And it helps you in that creative process as you're building a business. It's the backbone, actually, in my opinion, for your management plan of operations. It's a blueprint that you can always go back and refer to in the midst of operating your business. There are some disadvantages, however, to the business planning process in itself, or what I'm calling here the activity of business planning. And some of these things include, not involving the right people in building your business plan, spending too much time on non-essential things that don't move the needle or don't really help constructively add value to the process. Poor accountability and implementation also plagues people who write business plans or who don't engage the process well or fairly even. At the end of the day, execution is about getting your product or service to customers, and that's what helps us thrive in the marketplace and in our business. No business plan, as the screen says, no business plan, however smart it looks, however great it's written, no matter how fancy the paper it's on, survives the first contact with customers. Jim Kostler, one of our entrepreneurs who are in residence with us, longtime entrepreneur and business builder, always says that you need to have that proof of concept, and your business needs to have traction along the time while you're writing this business plan. I think it's okay if you have a business plan that isn't fully and completely written out as you go through the process. But certainly if you're a startup, I believe that you need some sort of business plan scaffolding, some sort of blueprint that will help you engage how you're going to approach the marketplace, how you're going to build your value proposition, how you're going to identify what the problems and solutions are, what customers need. We're going to talk about all of these things momentarily. And as the famous Mike Tyson says, everyone has a plan until they get punched really hard. The second part about business plans that I thought that I should put on the table and draw out a little bit is about getting too granular too early. And I kind of alluded to that a moment ago. When you're building your first business plan with your new venture, you want to be able to step back out of it and not get too, again, too granular. The risk in getting too granular too early is that when it comes time to sell the plan to a venture capitalist, to a funder, or even sell it to team members, partners, or mentors, you don't want to lock yourself into a plan that is still under development. And that's what I mean here by selling the plan, risk getting locked in. So you want to be careful about that. There's a healthy sweet spot. And of course, if you were looking at a Venn diagram, this would be the space between the two circles, between a business plan becoming a waste of time and the length of a business plan. So always keep that in mind with most things. You want to be able to find that sweet spot in the process. So unless you're a serial entrepreneur and this is not your first rodeo and you've been doing this a few times and you've got a string of successes behind you, as our fictional friend Rivers Corbett here, you really should have a business plan to guide you along in your business venture. It's usually helpful. You know, you don't want to believe those Silicon Valley myths that you hear all the time about all you really have to do is just get your idea out on the back of a napkin and people will rush to give you money. There could be nothing further from the truth. Most venture capitalists or most people who are investors and look to businesses to invest in return for equity in those businesses, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, are really looking for well thought out, well engineered, creative plans that show, number one, how they'll get a return on their investment, and number two, that you have an idea that what you're doing is well thought out. Having no business plan is the quickest way to define yourself as a dreamer, or some would say not serious about your approach to business. It isn't necessarily true. We've all seen successful businesses without a business plan, but it's always my hope, as I've built a number of businesses myself, that for my competitive advantage, that my competitors won't take the time to do a business plan. They won't take the time to plan, to look forward, to think through it, how they'll gain their competitive advantages and all those things. And so you can judge for yourself rather than not at this point if a business plan is for you. We don't have much in the way of a business strategy, says the founder of Craigslist, Craig Newmark. Like no business plan, which I say to torment all my friends who are venture capitalists or MBAs. That's always entertaining. The deal is it's a mixture of luck and persistence. That may be true for Craig, but it isn't true for the vast majority of people who go into business. Statistically, 7 out of 10 businesses fail after the first year, and much of it, the number one reason is due to a lack of planning. So just keep that in the back of your mind, that the Craig Newmark model may not necessarily be the model to follow, but it is fun, and doesn't mean that you can't get there like Craig, but without luck and persistence, it's going to be a very difficult road. Okay, so before we talk, before we go into why, I'm just checking to see if there's anybody in the chat box. No questions yet, so we will continue. Okay, why do business plans fail? Why do business plans fail? There's a couple of reasons why, and I'll just scan the list and just share them with you. Well, and I'll be audible here while you just sort of be visual and cognitively just let these just sort of settle into the back of your mind. Why business plans fail. The executive summary is unclear and not concise. Please keep in mind that the executive summary is written last. It is not written first. There's a trend for shortcutting out there where people are cutting and pasting executive summaries that they're finding online and masquerading these things as their business plan. I assure you that it would not take long for a seasoned venture capitalist or a seasoned business advisor to look directly through that and to determine that you have not put a lot of thought in what seemingly could be a cut and paste document that isn't yours. Oftentimes people don't take the time to even season these executive summaries with the particulars of their business. So my advice is that stay away from the executive summary as a representation of your business unless the business plan is written and your executive summary is drawn from it. Going back to the model, the basic concept of the business hasn't been researched and validated. You've never talked to a customer. Your thought was if you build it, they will come. Again, it doesn't always work out that way in the marketplace. Your concept should be thoroughly researched and validated, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment about how to get that done. Many people think that their business is unique and there are no competitors. Well, there's another falsehood. There are always competitors and they're all around you. A lack of research is an indicator when someone says that to me, well, I don't have any competitors, and that surely is a red flag that they have not researched their marketplace or their industry. Again, so, you know, the founder, CEO, owner of the business has never spoken to a real customer. Their financial plans are too optimistic, built on the wrong things, and we have a very interesting breakdown of financial plans, realistic financial projections that I'll spend a little bit of time on. How the loan is going to be paid, obviously, is of interest to the investor or to the banker or to the bank or to whoever the funding organization or venture capitalist person is. And how will they get a return on their investment? In some cases, for example, if you're a nonprofit or if you're an incorporated business, how your board will be constructed. The valuation of your company, do you know it? Do you have any idea? Is it high? Is it realistic? Are there intellectual properties that you're infringing on? Are there conflicts? And what about your team? What are the positions that you'll need on your team to be successful in your business? In short, you know, a business plan doesn't have to be a book. It should probably start out as an executive summary type of formatted pitch deck, you know, maybe a dozen to 15 slides that cover all of the right and essential elements of your idea. And you want to moderate this pitch deck, this executive summary, or your business plan based on the audience that you are going to share that information with. So, for example, a business plan for a venture capitalist or an investor might be more lengthy with financial projections and things like that. Then you might share with someone who has a casual interest in your business, like a mentor or an advisor or someone who you may be bouncing ideas off of. So there are different degrees of business plans, and you share more and more information based on the type of audience that you're going to have before you. And the key thing is here, start simple. Again, it doesn't have to be a book. You can always add details later as your business grows. But what I like about this approach is very simple. As you learn more about your business, as your concept is gaining proof, and as you're gaining traction in the business within the marketplace, and you're selling your goods, or you're having sales with your services, you can make updates in addition to the base plan that you have. So the details can be added later. The Techstars Toolkit is our first leg in our e-learning platform here at the Minority Business Center. This is for anyone who can engage. This is a world-class tool. I would encourage you to go there and check it out, toolkit.techstars. But of interest in this particular case, I'd like you to look at number 7 and number 12. Give your elevator pitch and master your pitch. Again, I went back to the pitch deck, but I also think that that verbal or audible pitch that describes your business, that has captured the essence of the customer pain point, the problem, the solutions that your business provides, the value that your business provides, the consequences for the potential customer of not using your service, your competitive advantage in the marketplace, all within 30 seconds to a minute. That's the pitch. A strong pitch is hugely big time important. And if you don't believe me, there's a television show, which I think you've probably seen, where the pitch is everything. Make a long story short, if you have not began to work on your pitch, or if your pitch needs work, this time of crisis, as we're re-engineering our business and as we're turning the corner in an attempt to figure out how we can best adjust or reallocate business resources or re-engineer our brand, or whatever the case may be for you, as we're all turning this corner together, it may be the time to revisit our pitch and how we express our brand, how we express who it is we are, what it is we do, how we do it, and why we do it to potential customers. So just so you know, if you haven't already thought about this, you know, your business plan, your pitch deck, whatever the case may be, is an outward-facing document. So you want to keep the terminology and the tone consistent with who you're pitching to, or who your audience is. And your audience, of course, can be investors, bankers, funders, venture capitalists, business partners, et cetera, and et cetera. Keep your acronyms and keep the jargon short. Skip it, eliminate it, especially in cases where people outside of your industry or market may not know and understand what they are. You want to start your pitch by grabbing the person's attention, obviously, with a statement or a question that piques their interest. Let's look at the 7 must-have key elements of this, what we'll call this pitch plan, re-engineering of our business during this crisis time. Okay, here are the 7 must-have key elements. Let's see if, okay, we've got somebody maybe in the chat box. Okay, we've got a question from John. And John writes, are there 2 levels of business plans that make sense? When one is concept, MVP stage, where it's a side project to see if you can get any customers, and a second business plan is once you start to get your customers. Yeah, you know, John, I think there are many levels of business plans, especially if this is a, you know, if you're looking at your, you know, your minimum viability while you're in this stage of your, the MVP stage of your planning. I would suggest that I think it's okay that your business plan grows, perhaps maybe not necessarily 2, but a very base business plan that captures the essence of how you plan to approach, you know, your management plan of operations, your marketing, your digital, your social digital marketing strategies, those kind of things, how you'll finance the business, some very base 1 to 3 year financial projections that are perhaps maybe based on or in alignment with market and industry returns. I don't know if you need 2. Great question. I don't think that second business plan, once you start to get the customers, would be particularly necessary. But you take me to a good point, John, and thanks for asking this question again. I talked about Techstars Toolkit as being our first part of our e-learning platform and our business building platform, by the way. And again, these are world-class tools. We're also going to talk a little bit about the Gale system available through the public library in Ohio. And we're also going to talk about Jumpstart Inc. in Cleveland, their go-to-market strategy. And I think by the end of this webinar, John, you're going to have a great idea about how to approach it. Thanks for asking the question. Appreciate that. Okay, let's kind of get moving forward here. Okay, went backwards somehow. I don't know how that happened. Okay, number 1. Define, or the definition of your customer problem, followed by your solution. What solutions are you providing for customer pain points? Okay. Customers don't buy products. They don't buy services. They buy solutions to problems. It's just that simple. You use concrete terms to quantify in your plan, your pitch deck or whatever, to identify or to define the value and the pain. For example, I just patented a new cell phone technology that will double battery life for half the cost. Here in this statement, you see a qualification of value and an expression of what pain or pain point that the customer feels. This battery life is not what I need it to be. And I think most of us who use cell phones understand and get that. So use concrete terms to qualify the pain and the value. And remember, as you're giving your pitch, as you're constructing your elevator pitch, or as you're constructing your Shark Tank pitch, this is a key and primary element that should be visited in that statement. No more pain, a phone call, and here, of course, is a solution. No more pain of phone shutdown in the middle of a call. Doesn't happen much anymore, but I can imagine it happens at the wrong time. So there you have it. And of course, this is your elevator pitch hook, the key part of that information, which you must be able to deliver in 30 seconds to a minute. Number two, let's talk about opportunity segmentation and the competitive environment. Opportunity segmentation categorizes consumers based on the opportunity they represent in increasing sales and profits. And so let me say that again. Opportunity segmentation characterizes consumers, your customers, and perhaps maybe end consumers. We want to make sure there's a difference between a customer and an end consumer. And the best way to look at that is breakfast cereal. Mom is the customer, but little Johnny and his sister Sally, they're the consumers. So there's a difference. We won't get too deep into that, but just so you know. But again, opportunity segmentation characterizes consumers based on the opportunity they represent to increasing sales and profits. These customer segments are based on the consumer's response to different benefits, different ideas, different values, different lifestyles, different products and different services. These things matter when you look at opportunity. A competitive environment is a dynamic, something external in which a business competes and functions. So this is outside of the business itself. This is in the marketplace. A dynamic external system, and there are probably 4 or 5 different types if I'm going back to my certified business days. That's not important here, but there are many different external environment threats, and you'll have to deal with them all. But essentially, your business is competing and operating amidst these in this environment. The more sellers of a similar product or service, the more competitive the environment it is for you. Let's look at fast food restaurants, for example. There are an awful lot to choose from. There are so many to choose from. The competition in this case, or the competitive environment, using this example, would be very high. So the market scope for your solution should be quantified in non-technical terms. We spoke a little bit about that, so John Doe can understand it, with data that's sourced from professionals in the industry rather than your own opinion. You really need to go out and do the market research on this stuff. So market research is something that we can help you with. We have a number of tools here available through the library. The Minority Business Center uses IBIS. We have that available to do very targeted research. Within the Gale system at the public library, they have a system again called Demographics Now, and we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. And we're here. So please take a moment to capture the website for the public library. You can access the Gale system from any public library, online, what have you, in the state of Ohio. And this is free to you as an Ohio resident, by the way. And I think that this is a grant from a large U.S. foundation to provide this. And if you can imagine what a great tool this is for our rural clients who are not necessarily co-located in the Youngstown area. This is our methodology to engage and reach out and to help you build a successful business through online tools. And the Gale Business System is the second leg of our e-learning platform. We use this after we do our business model canvassing through the toolkit.techstars, as I spoke about earlier. And again, this is leg number 2, available through the website, libraryvisit.org. To enter into the Gale business demographics, you'll need to have your 10-digit library card and, of course, your 4-digit PIN. If you do not have one, they are available to you via online. So you can either call or you can go online and grab a library card if you don't have one. Excellent tool. We are also fortunate in Youngstown at the main library branch, which is downtown, to have a business librarian, a certified business advisor, such as the talent level that you're getting here at Youngstown Business Incubator, who again, he is a business librarian who's dedicated to helping you grow your business, and his name is Ed. So once you go to the website, Ed will pop up very quickly. Great guy, great resource. I encourage you to use the public library. Okay. So, as again, we're talking about opportunity segmentation and competitive environment. You want to list all your key competitors and the alternatives, highlighting your sustainable competitive advantages, such as patents and trademarks. Those are things that people can't touch, no matter what they do. When you have that patent or that trademark protection, you're golden. And here's a simple graph from Lee Cowan that in short explains the tenets of a sustainable competitive advantage. Offers of value to your customers, your value proposition. When you're thinking about your value proposition is developed in your business model canvas. Your offer of value to the customer, what is that? That's important if you're going to sustain a competitive advantage. Value matters. Is your product or service satisfying the marketplace desire, or is it just another commodity amongst others? Do you proverbially have that fast food restaurant that we spoke of earlier where the competition is really high? Is that a sustainable competitive advantage? Is your product or service, or in particular good that you manufacture, is it hard to find substitutes for it? Or can I readily get it? In every corner I turn, every store I go to, can I readily obtain it, or is your sustainable competitive advantage due in large part because they are hard to find good substitutes for your product or service? And is it difficult for competitors to acquire, imitate, or copy? So those are our 4 basic, again, tenets of a sustainable competitive advantage that will help you be competitive in the marketplace. The third leg of our e-learning platform at YBI and the Minority Business Center is our go-to-market tool, our go-to-market strategy. Again, Jumpstart Inc., which is in Cleveland, our local affiliate of Jumpstart, has this awesome tool, the go-to-market strategy. And again, we rely on this pretty heavily for engagement at YBI. We engage our client partners through the use of tools that we can meet you on a playing field where you are. By the way, the ideology behind our e-learning platform is pretty simple. And I'll use the case of a single mother who has 2 children who owns a lifestyle business. The reason we have the majority of our platform in a digital space is because imagine if you're that mother of 2. You work a 9-to-5 job. On the way home, you stop by the nursery to pick up your 2 children. On the way home, they're in the backseat either yelling for McDonald's, or you're on your way home thinking about what are you going to make for dinner inside of 20 minutes. We do online learning for this reason. Number one, we want to meet you where you are. And chances are, if you're that lifestyle business owner, at the end of a long day, it's probably going to be at home. Doesn't mean that you won't sacrifice to come to an occasional webinar, workshop, or something like that, but our platform is able to meet you where you are. Maybe it's 10 o'clock at night, maybe it's 2 o'clock in the morning, maybe it's 0600 in the morning when your best thinking times are. We can engage you through these strategy tools, toolkit.techstars, the Gale Business Plan Builder available through the library, and our third tool that we use here that completes our e-learning platform, the go-to-market strategy tool from Jumpstart. We can engage you from start to finish across the board for any small to medium-sized company and help you grow your business and help it thrive. And this is the tool that we use, and I look forward to engaging you in it. And by the way, just over to the right, you can see that Gale has, that Jumpstart has a pretty good investor pitch tool as well. Okay, let's look at number 3, provide the details of the business model and cash flow. But before we do that, let's just check and see. Okay, our chat box is okay, and our Q&A is okay. Okay, provide details on the business model and cash flow. Sounds pretty simple, doesn't it? Every business, including nonprofits, needs a business model to survive. And again, we create the business model in a business model canvas. And of course, both the Gale system and the Techstars toolkit has an online template that you can use for your business model canvas or creating your business model. And here's basically what a business model as envisioned, or what we call the business model canvas. You see many representations of this, but this is the one that is pretty commonly accepted. And of course, these are the 9 different tenets of a business model. Of course, customers, your distribution channels, what will your revenue streams be? What are the key activities necessary to provide your good or service? What are the resources that you need? What are the partnerships, relationships that you need? Who are your key suppliers? What are the costs? We're going to talk, when we talk about financial projections in a little bit, we're going to talk about cost structures, fixed and variable expenses, those sort of things when you're creating your financial projections. And lastly, the value proposition, which everything sort of hinges off of. You need a strong value proposition, as you can see it there in the center of the screen, relative to your customer needs or your customer segments and those relationships. Providing your product or service free to customers is a no-no. It might sound attractive in marketing materials, but it's a no-go for me. I remember as a financial advisor, I was a heavy discounter, and all I was discounting were my, my commissions on products and things like that. And so I had to learn the hard way that the freemium model is not a good model. You need revenue sources to survive, and it's critically important. Don't discount your way through appeasing new customers. Customers should buy your product and service based on the value proposition that you present. The lack of a value proposition that's compelling means that you have to find other nefarious ways to cajole customers in the marketplace to buy your goods and services, and none of them are actually good. So again, free is a dirty word, especially to your investors, because it's hard to get a financial return on free. They just simply don't want to see any representation of free in your representation to them about your company, nor should there be. Oops, I think with you. Okay, so let's highlight why your team is the best for this challenge. You want to make sure that you name your key players and advisors. Your mentors, for example, are important. It's okay to say, for example, I work with John Doe, who's the small business advisor at Jumpstart, who's helped me create this business plan. I think those are fine. Every business needs mentors and advisors. There are SCORE advisors. There's the SBDC here at Youngstown Business, at Youngstown State University, along with SCORE. Lots and lots of resources around us to take advantage of. And we can certainly have a conversation about that. If you're on this webinar about that, just give me the call or shoot me an email. I'll be glad to help. Current and past titles don't matter. Nobody cares about them. They don't convey why you're right for the position that you're in. If you're building a business, unimportant. Professional investors look for the right people more than the right product. In other words, they're looking for an A+ team member, and they'll accept a B- product that can be worked on. But the big difference is if I can get that A+, A+ is what they're looking for, again, in the right people. And here's the Canva team. If you know about Canva, they are an online marketing support, digital marketing support company. And as you can see, as you scan around, there are different sorts of levels of talent here, of backgrounds, people coming from Google. Some people, many of these people are the own CEOs and CEOs of their own and founders of their own companies. Mr. Rasmussen and Bagshore at the company, they are advisors and investors. By the way, once you bring on an investor, you can anticipate the investor will have a critical part or a big, huge part in the direction that your company goes. So we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. All right, marketing, sales, and customer experience, and we are on the downside. We're at 5, and we only have 7 to go for this information. I hope you're enjoying yourself again. Shoot me an email or give me a call if you need follow-up to this. You're more welcome to ask a question in the Q&A box if you can find it on your screen. It is there. Marketing, sales, and customer experience. Hopefully, you'll see these things as essential elements of the business, but in my business experience as a certified business counselor, I can tell you that surprisingly, they are not, for many businesses, at the top of their to-do list. I think that sometimes customers are taken for granted because you built a business and you expected them to come. Sales are taken for granted because you have the best, cheapest, and fastest widget in town, and so people should run and flock to you to purchase it. Marketing, oftentimes there is no marketing strategy or marketing plan, and worst off, there's no marketing budget. Many funding requests never mention any specific plans or costs to be associated with the marketing strategy. And I will lump these 3 things into that marketing strategy, or that customer experience or customer relationship strategy, or growth of sales or growth of revenue strategy. Many funding requests never mention any specific plans associated with these elements. Usually no mention means you don't have a plan, and certainly you're likely not to be competitive. And as I mentioned earlier, as someone who's had the opportunity to build a few businesses, 1 or 2 successfully, it is my hope that any competitor of mine does not take the time to plan. Number 6, project revenues, cost, and investment needs. In your pitch deck, you have a representation in front of you about time, page views, and number of seconds. Very simply, I want to take you through the first 2, financials and team, and then I'll take you through the bottom 2, problem and solution. Within your pitch deck, the least most important slides are going to be problem solution. Twice as much time is spent on your team and the financials. Many business models, some business models the marketplace is familiar with. We understand pizza shops. We understand small retail. We understand many different types of things. So we understand problem and solution as it applies to many different businesses. But when it comes to the financials and when it comes to the team, this chart should help you understand that the 2 most important things that you can do in that pitch deck is to ensure that your team makes an impression and that your financial projections make an impression. Okay, So going back to the gentleman's question earlier, I said that I would revisit this. We had talked about should there be two different plans after you establish your minimum viability, the essence of his question. And the answer was yes and no. Um, but let's look at some realistic financial projection scenarios of which, and this goes along with your business plan as well, my friend. There are different financial projection scenarios and there are different business plan scenarios. But in this case, the best case optimistic financial projection, what is that? And we're going to look at all of these projections based on the multiple of cash flow increase. In your projections, they're either multiples or, for example, 1 times, 2 times, 3 times, or they're a percentage of increase, 10%, 30%, 50%, whatever the case may be, however it's expressed spreadsheet wise, but it's some multiple of a cash flow increase. And in this case, your best case or optimistic financial projections are going to be high. These are based on sustainable, what we call segment obtainable market. The sustainable segment obtainable market is your penetrated market, the marketplace where you're operating in, where you have an understanding of what your business revenues are. These are the people who purchase your goods or to whom you provide your service for, that you have a sustainable business customer consumer relationship with. These are your best case, most optimistic sources of data to make these projections from. This is not what we call a very hopeful total addressable market. Your total addressable market, if you let's just say in America, if you're in a fast food restaurant, could be 9 billion. Your best optimistic case for your financial projection certainly isn't going to be at 9 billion. It's going to be some factor that is a multiple very, very, very less or lower than, or a lot less lower than obviously the size of that market, your total addressable market. It's going to be more like your sustainable, penetratable, obtainable market. The second type of realistic financial plan would be the market aligned plan. And this is research based. And this is why research is so important. You may be a startup business who doesn't have a history of earnings just yet, or not certainly a year. You may have a couple of months, or you may have none. Your market aligned financial projection would be useful in this case. Very simply, it's just based on the market industry aligned average. We already know what certain types of businesses should return in revenues. Then, of course, there's some differences based on regional localities, things like that. Prices vary. What you'd pay for a pizza, maybe in Los Angeles, would be vastly different than what you might pay for a pizza in Canfield. I think we all get that. But these market aligned projections are low to moderate, and they're very much in line with what the marketplace suggests from research that it will give. These are very easy, by the way, for investors or people who are reviewing your business plan to learn, understand, and question. So you want to make sure if you say, my business plan projections are going to increase by 10% month over month or 25% year over year, you want to have that research to back it up. And you may even want to have an addendum somewhere, a market addendum, which many business plans call for. That type of information is critical, is oftentimes included so the readers understand. I always like to say within a business plan, if you have, 15 pages, and let's just say your financials begin on page 7, the first 6 pages are scanned, and most people, venture capitalists, bankers, financial people, they go straight to the financial projection. So this is the part of your business plan or your pitch deck or your planning activity that you want to make sure that you have your arms around. And that's market alignment. And the last one, or the third, is your baseline survival. Hey, these are your break-even revenues. This is the basic base break-even money that must come into your business for you to keep the doors open. In some cases, this is based on historical gross revenue data, or it could just be a very simple bottom line. So as I mentioned earlier, this is your most conservative projection, by the way. You want to make sure that you're looking at, from a bottom line perspective, you want to make sure you're looking at your monthly incurred fixed and variable expenses, month over month or year over year, and as a projection. So these are the three types of financial projection scenarios that should align themselves with the different types of business plan audiences. Venture capitalists, a funder, a partner, a mentor, advocate, sort of an individual. There may be different audiences, and so just please keep that in mind. If you're not willing to set targets for yourself, you can't really expect investors to commit funds. And when I say investors in this case, I'm also talking about funders or those from the banking community who you may go to for a loan. And also you want to make sure that your milestones or those major milestones along the way should be outlined. We'll revisit that in a second, but there are some examples of setting targets for yourself. Growing your customers by 4 to 5% year over year. Delivering with excellence, customer engagement, average free cash flows of sales as a percentage of sales. The better you get that customer relationship equation down, the more you can expect to be successful. And then partnering for shared success, becoming the partner of choice. Whatever relationship it may be the partner of choice to your suppliers, where you're getting very ideal partner relationships or supplier relationships, where you're getting breaks and those sort of things, or becoming that partner of choice to whatever the case may be. But these are just some simple examples of what that means to set targets for yourself. And here is just a graphic expression of charting out quarterly and annually milestones in your business plan. And you can see the objective here for this company in year 3 is to have 1,000 paying customers, and in year 4 have revenues of $1 million. Okay, so when you're sizing your funding requests, be aware of the value of your business today, business valuation. Since most investors expect an equity share for their contribution. And let's just check and just see if I have any questions. Okay, not seeing any, I'll keep moving. Okay, here's a representation of 3 different approaches to valuing a business or an asset. Our purpose here today is not to illustrate or just to show. I just wanted to get an idea of the 3 different approaches. One is the cost approach. What was the investment in the business? What did this thing cost me to build it? And what would it cost to replace it? Then there's the market approach or the relative value approach. Your valuation is based on comparable company numbers or precedent transactions that it hadn't, transactions that had occurred in the past with very comparable companies. So these are the comps, so to speak. And then there's discounted cash flow or future cash flows, the forecast, and this is where the multiples are, or the intrinsic value. My company, based on the future cash flows that I expect my financial projections to come in at, are at a multiple of, let's just say, 5 times what they are today. And that's what they mean by a multiple of 5. Again, these are just a snapshot of the different approaches to valuing your business. Always have in mind one of these approaches when valuing your business. And for early startups and those sort of things, typically it's the cost approach. Particularly if you lack sales, then you'd have nothing to base a forecast of future cash flows on if you're not selling anything. And again, your return on assets and equity. This screenshot appears because I want you to focus on the return on equity, which is beneath the return on assets. Remember, venture capitalists work for shares of your company or shareholder equity. Even though equity means assets less liabilities, even though they may take on liabilities, they also will take on assets or equity within your company And so if you're going to do a deal with a venture capitalist, first of all, your company has to be worth something. Second of all, the value proposition that you're going to make to a venture capitalist and ultimately is going to be shaped by how much equity is in return for their financial contribution to your company. And if you don't believe me, you can believe these guys. I don't think you've ever seen a deal on Shark Tank that did not include an exchange of equity in the pitcher's company. And just to keep in mind, in October, YBI will be sponsoring a pitch tank competition. Please visit our website, ybi.org, for more information and get on our newsletter list. And keep checking our website. I think we've already begun to put this out in the public and offer this as of interest to people. So visit our website for our Shark Tank competition in October. A lot of fun. Okay, and lastly, and as we wrap this up, let's talk about the last must-have. Outline the potential investor return and payback process. We've kind of been touching on this. Okay. And as you can see from this graphic representation, 5% of venture capitalists for their return on their investment is 3 times or more. So for example, if I give you $100,000, it's a multiple of 3 as a return on my investment. And that's an idea how this works. This whole venture capital thing and angel investor, how to structure those approaches is a science and a discipline within itself. And if and when that time comes, we at YBI and Minority Business can help you approach or help you form an approach to pursuing funding. Okay, so again, the best way to do this is to highlight a recent company payback to investors, and we're talking about how the ROI on return on investment. Of course, what would it be to the investor if the company went public or if the company was acquired by someone? And that's of particular interest if you're a venture capitalist, and that's what we're alluding to here. Angel investors look for high growth potential companies who can double revenues yearly. So if you're doing financial projections and you're looking for angel investment capital or venture investment capital, keep in mind that your year-over-year revenues should roughly double if that's what they're looking for. Everybody wants a higher multiplier or return for investment. Again, VC investors are, like many people, they are their activities are to make money. Okay, let's just quickly summarize and we'll wrap this up. And thank you for sharing with me today and being with me for this webinar. I hope that this was helpful to you. Write it down, make it plain as we come to a close. If you don't have time to write things down, there are apps that allow you to talk your way through, to dictate those written things that will convert your speech into text. And then you can cut and paste it into your document. Find an app for your mobile phone that allows you to think some of these things through, and record into your phone, and then record and cut and paste those into the document that you're constructing. Great way if you don't have the time or always the ability to write things down. No executive I know writes his own contracts with everyone who owns, but every smart one owns everyone that is written for him and understands every element in it. This is where people get tripped up with business plans when they're allowed to be written by someone else. It shows from a seasoned set of eyes that not understanding your own business plan is a red flag that you didn't write it. An entrepreneur who can't manage a plan probably won't be able to manage the new business. Managing and running effectively a new business requires time, patience, and all sorts of other different characteristics and attributes. what is being said here is that if an entrepreneur has difficult managing a plan, then the complexity of managing all the moving parts of a new business with the time allocations and allocations of resources, cost, variable fixed expenses is a difficult road to manage. Yet some people manage. This isn't an absolute thing, but it's a much more difficult road if you're having difficulty managing a plan. And of course, managing the plan, as always, writing the plan will help you manage the plan. There are no guarantees, as the slide alludes to, but studies have found that generally those people that start with a plan generally double their chances of success. And it stands to reason. At least your chances of success are increased through the writing, having, and referring back to a business plan. You know, in the world of high-risk startups, more than 50% fail. It's just known. You don't need to start your venture by convincing key players and people out there in the universe that what you have is an expensive hobby. You owe it to yourself, knowing that 50% of businesses fail within that first year. I actually think the number is a little higher. That the best way to prevent that, or reducing your risk in your venture, as I mentioned earlier, and operationalizing your plan, your effective plan, management plan of operation, is through the creation of some sort of business plan, activity, or scaffolding. Okay, well, this is the close, and this is where we have questions and answers. And as I move back to our screen shares, I'm not seeing any, so I want to say again, thank you, and let me move to my chat box here and see I've got something in here. Well, thank you, John. I appreciate your being here. And to the others who are on the line, thank you for joining. Please pay attention or pay careful attention to our website, which will disclose new learning opportunities to you. Everybody stay safe. And again, if we are needed here, by this point, you should have my horsepower, and there you have it again. There's my email address, and if you need me, please feel free to reach out to me. Thanks, everyone, and have a great afternoon and a great weekend, and be safe and be healthy. Bye-bye.